All right, so with this type of welding machine, you're going to be able to do 3 different types of welding, including stick welding, flux cord welding, and also the welding that you use gas. Either the CO2 is what it's labeled for. You could also probably use argon on this thing. Right now, we're going to be using the welding spool, and we're using a jumper wire at the bottom that passes the voltage through the gun. You can pull the trigger on this thing and you'll have the welding rod come out automatically. It's really super easy to use. I hooked this thing up with some just welding spool that I picked up online. You basically feed it through and then you cinch it down so that the motor can basically just feed this thing out the spool. You can adjust everything here on the front. You can select your material, the type of welding that you're doing, and you can adjust the voltage and amperage. It was really pretty intuitive. Let's take a look at this welding job. So I did get sent this product for review purposes, and I'm very glad that I did because it's awesome. I'm starting out by using the flux cord spool, which means you don't need any gas. Basically, you just pull the trigger on this thing, you create your arc, and then it auto feeds the spool. It also has a different mode where you can kind of do the opposite, where you have to hold the trigger down. I believe that's the 2T setting on it. I didn't really try that. I sort of preferred this way, so you don't have to keep holding the trigger down while you're welding. You can basically do the same thing with gas. You just have to change out one of the cores inside of the welding cable. I don't have that set up quite yet. It seemed a little overly complicated for the stuff that I do. I'm sure there's an application for using welding gases. Lots of recommended set points in the manual for beginners or advanced users, and once you get the hang of welding, you'll learn all of the different settings and voltages and amperages that you want to fine tune your machine depending on the application. The instructions were clear on some things and less clear on other things, like the jumper at the bottom. When you're using this mode, you need to attach that jumper. Now, after everything's done, you got to grind off the flux. Now in this next part, I'm going to be switching over to doing the stick welding. You still keep your same ground on the area that you're working, and then you just plug in down at the bottom this next cable that holds the welding rod. You just have to clip them in there. Now this is the kind of welding that I had tried before. You do have to go back into the menu on the machine. Every time you switch the welding mode, you have to change the settings there, select the stick welding, and then you can adjust your voltage up and down depending on what kind of stick and what kind of metal you're using. Here we're using 220 volts from a generator, and you have 2 different cord options. You can use the regular smaller power cord, or you can use like the larger sort of like RV style plug, like the 208, 230 appliance plugs. The machine detected it automatically when I plugged it in though. I'm a beginner at welding, and this method seemed significantly riskier and more difficult to do. It takes significantly more technique. My friend here is a professional welder. He went ahead and took over for me because I was not prepared to do this one. You can see my ground clip over there on the right. With proper technique, you can definitely use this thing with the stick welding. This guy's over here fixing all of my work. Thank you to him. After we finished that side of the repair, we decided to go ahead and switch back to the TIG welding because it was a little bit more fun, to be honest. That welding mode is also easier. You can see I'm switching through all of the different cycles here, and then we need to adjust the voltage. We're going to crank this guy back up to, I think, about 170 or 160 is where we went to. It's great to have many options when you're welding. This package has just tons of features. You can set the material type to a bunch of different settings on there, I believe including aluminum as well, and you can also put an 8-inch spool on it. We didn't have to do that. This one worked great with the 4-inch spool. It's just what I got. I'm not a welding expert, but the guys who were working with me on this project, they were absolutely in love with this machine. They work on welding every day, and they thought it was great. Now here we are just brushing off the flux here. We just had to kind of tack this up a little bit to give it a little bit more strength. And once you're done, be sure to paint over your welds so you don't cause them to oxidize and wear out over time. I think being able to have the versatility of doing 3 types of welding on this thing definitely makes this thing a very well-rounded product, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or expert welder.